Happy Halloween and thank you for tuning in to Millennial Movies. I am your host, Jesse James. Let's get right into this Stranger Things Season 2 spoiler-filled review. I'm going to start off with saying that I was dead wrong about Steve Harrington's character because all throughout Season 1 he's a jerk. He's our bully character that we see all throughout pop culture. But then at the end, he decides he's going to make a change to himself as a person and change for the better. And he buys Jonathan a new camera that he broke earlier in the season. And then he gets with Nancy and it looks like, okay, happily ever after. But I still wasn't buying that change, and I still didn't like that he's the one who got to get the girl at the end, even though he's done all this other bad stuff and mean stuff. But in Season 2, he's stuck with this change, this conscious decision that he's made to become a better person. He's stuck with it, and it's kind of backfired on him, but I appreciate what the Duffer Brothers, the writers, creators, and directors of this series have done with his character. They've made him really more likable in the fact that he's lost his popularity. He's not hanging out with the same friends that he used to have, which is a good thing. He's not the king of the school anymore. That's Billy's character now. He got used by Nancy. I mean, she couldn't tell him she loved him even when she was sober. So that really hurts. I mean, that cuts you deep. So he's kind of become a little bit more of a loner, and I think that makes the character a lot more relatable to someone like me. So I appreciate what they did with him. And, you know, the actor playing him does a really good job, so I really like Steve's character and where he's ended up so far. I'm curious as to where he goes in the future. We don't know if he's going to go to college or if he's going to work for his dad. We'll have to wait and see. But he also developed a very close relationship with Dustin, a friendship with Dustin, so I'm curious to see where that ends up heading to as well, because there's a point where they're talking about girls on the train tracks, which is very reminiscent. And it's a very similar shot to Stand By Me, which is a short story by Stephen King that's been turned into a film. But it's very reminiscent of that, and they're talking, you know, Dustin and Steve are talking about, you know, how to get girls and stuff like that. So I like this little like friendship that he's got with Dustin, and this role that he took on later in the episodes where he's kind of become like Mr. Mom, Mr. Cool Mom, and he's watching over the kids. So I really like what his character's turned out to be, and he's become one of my favorites. I can't wait to see where he goes in the future. Next we have Sean Astin as Bob, and I think this was damn near perfect casting. I mean, you think of the 80s, you think of Goonies, right? So it's perfect that he was cast in this role of Bob, and the character of Bob is just this like really nice, genuine guy he's just really likable. He's just kind of lovable. You just want to, you know, cuddle up with Bob Newby. So it's just a fun character that I really enjoyed watching. And I did catch that Goonies reference, and I believe it was like episode 5 or 6, where Joyce is telling him about, you know, where to find the X, and, you know, X basically like a callback to Goonies. You know, X marks the spot, and he's like, what's at the X? Treasure. So I mean, nice callback to Goonies, nice little Easter egg. I enjoyed that as a film geek and a film nerd. I really like that, and I like his character, and I like seeing him. And it's a shame that his character was killed off in episode 8. It was very sad, but it was also necessary. We needed to have a big character death like that to remind us that there are huge stakes in this story. People can and will die. In Season 1, we lost Barb. In Season 2, we've lost Bob. In further seasons, we are probably going to lose other beloved characters. So I appreciate what Bob did in this story, and he was like, you know, the brain. He was the one who helped Joyce and Mike and Will figure out where Hopper was and what's going on with everything in the Upside Down. So I really appreciated his character. I really liked him. Like I said, he had very nice he had very nice qualities to him. But unfortunately, those are not the qualities you want to have when you're trying to survive in this crazy world that's going on with the Upside Down and everything. So those nice qualities ended up being his downfall and what ended up killing him, because he is not that superhero. I mean, I think he says to Joyce before he takes off is that remember me as superhero Bob Newby. So it's very tragic what happened to him, but I enjoyed his time on the show, and I really like Bob. Hopper and 11 scenes always had me hooked because I'm just so invested in the characters. Chief Hopper, 11, Jane, they're just so very well done. I appreciate everything the actors do with the characters and the writing behind it, the direction. It all comes together to make a nice, perfect, beautiful recipe. And I appreciate their relationship to each other. Hopper's, you know, kind of like the father figure for her. You know, she's still a kid. 11 still needs someone to hold her and tell her everything's going to be okay. And Hopper, you know, with 11, in a way, he's trying to fill this void, this black hole in his heart that that's been, that's been there ever since the passing of his daughter, unfortunately. So I appreciate their chemistry and their bond. I really like it. It seems very natural to me. It doesn't feel forced at all. I mean, their arguments, their happy moments. I appreciated really their scene in the car, and I believe it's episode 9 when they're heading back to the Hawkins lab, and they're talking to each other, and they're both saying how they did some stupid stuff, but hey, it's gonna be okay, and everything's gonna work out for the better, and they can do it together. So I appreciate them working together in the end to kind of save the day, and I enjoy every scene with them. I really do. I can't wait to see what goes forward in the future. With now that Hopper's really gonna be kind of like a dad to her, because the other government official, the new guy, I forget his name, but he's basically given Hopper custody of Eleven, of Jane. So she's gonna be a high schooler soon. He's gonna be like her dad, like he's gonna be really her dad soon. So I can't wait to see how that's gonna play out in further seasons. I really enjoyed everything we got with these two characters, so no complaints there. I want to talk about the kids here for a moment. Starting off with Mike Wheeler, he really took a back seat this season. He doesn't play as prominent of a role as he did in season 1, where I've seen season 1 at least 3 times in its totality. And I really feel like Mike's the heart and the soul of that season. It's really his show, I think, at least. And in season 2, he kind of just takes a back seat. The most that he really does is play a good friend to Will, and he does that very well. I like Finn Wolfhard. So not much to say about his character, but like I said, he was a very good friend to Will. I appreciate the scenes that they had together. There's a scene where they're talking, I think in Mike's room, or Will's room, I can't remember exactly, but they're just talking about like what's going on with Will and what he's seeing, and Will can really only talk to Mike. That's his best friend, and I appreciate Mike being there for him. It really kind of reminded me of Gordy LaChance and Chris Chambers' friendship in Stand By Me, which I know I talked about earlier. So I really appreciate their friendship, and I really like Mike as a character. He's of course very smart, he's very imaginative, and it helps with figuring out plans to defeat the Demogorgon later. So it all works well. I like his character. His character's very enjoyable. Him getting to go to the Snowball finally with 11, their reunion was just it just makes you so happy. It makes the heart happy seeing them together and seeing them kiss at the end. It's very nice. It's very nice to see them happy. So I enjoyed that. Lucas, unlike Mike, this season was given a way more to do, and I appreciate that. We gotta have diversity in this series, and you can tell that they really tried to do that with showing his family, with showing his parents, his sister, other characters like number 8's a minority character as well. So we gotta have diversity and appreciate it, but not just diversity, but good diverse characters. And Lucas is a good character. So I like his expanded role. I like his relationship with Mad Max, who I'm going to talk about in a second. It's really cute, and it's nice to see them together and see Lucas get more to do this season. I'll be looking forward to seeing what he does in the future. Now, talking about Mad Max, she's a very strong, well-written character. I appreciate everything they did with her. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about her coming in. I was like, really? Do we need more kids? We don't. But I was wrong again. The Duffer Brothers continue to prove me wrong. She's a very well-written character. Like I said, she's very strong. She's very independent. She deals with this kind of emotional and maybe not physical. At least we don't know for sure. But she definitely deals with this abuse from her older brother or her older stepbrother, and she deals with it by going to the arcade and playing video games. Just like, that's just something a lot of kids do, a lot of young people do. I mean, I certainly do that when I'm stressed out. I like to play video games. So it's very easy to relate with her character. She's very good at video games as well. She beats the other kids' high score in Dig Dug in the arcade, so I like that. And I like another thing that she stands up for herself. She really does. At the end, not only with Billy, does she physically stand up for herself and help out Steve and save Steve from, who the hell knows, death or major brain damage from Billy when he's just, pounding down on his face. Not only does she physically stand up for herself in that regard, but when the kids, when Mike especially and Lucas and Dustin are like keeping her out of their little circle and like what they're talking about and the inner workings of their crew, she's not going to take that. She's like, you guys aren't, letting me get involved. You guys aren't talking to me. You guys are pushing me away. I don't need to be in your little group then. I'll just walk away. I don't need to be a part of it. So I appreciate her character a lot. I didn't think I was going to like her, but I did. I really did. The actor did a phenomenal job with her. So I really like the character of Mad Max. Now this is something that I'm going to get really deep into here, and I think it might disappoint a few of you. And to be honest with you, it disappoints me a little bit too, because I don't want it to happen. But I feel like the writing is all but on the wall for this to happen. So let me just get right into it for you. So what do I mean by that? I'm talking about Dustin's character, and I feel that there's a potential divide that's coming between him and the rest of the crew, the main 4 kids, because you really have to think, of the 4 kids, we know back in season 1 that Dustin told Mike at one point that he gets it when they were fighting. He was like, he gets it. Lucas was his friend first. And then, of course, Mike tells him, "You're my best friend too." But Dustin tells Mike that he understands that Lucas was his best friend first. So, okay, Mike knew Lucas first. And then in this season, in episode 8, when Will is sitting in the chair tied up, and he's got his mother and Jonathan and Mike talking to him and telling him all these favorite memories of theirs, Mike says, basically that they met in kindergarten. So obviously, Mike and Will became friends much earlier too. So Mike was already friends with Will in kindergarten. Then he became friends with Lucas. And Dustin was the 4th and final member of their crew. He's the last one that came in just a couple years ago. So he's already the 4th member. He was already the last one to come in. And with him taking this advice, this new friendship with Steve Harrington, the old king of the high school, the old popular kid, I think that Dustin might eventually shoot to that level of popularity like Steve Harrington did. And he might become, this new popular kid in the school. And he's getting his haircut, advice, he's getting hairspray put on and all this stuff. So you take that into consideration, and take into consideration that he's a little more isolated in huge chunks of this season where he's by himself. Or when he's not by himself, he's with Steve. And he's also keeping secrets from the group, and that, when he refines Dart again, he doesn't tell his friends about it. He doesn't tell them at all. He keeps it a secret. So that's something that he keeps isolated to himself there as well. And at the Snowball in episode 9, when the series is finishing this season, he sees all his friends get dates. He sees Mike go and dance with 11. He sees Lucas get the girl that he was crushing on in Mad Max. Will even gets this girl to come dance with him, and he gets rejected by a couple different girls, and he's sitting on the bleachers, and he's sad, and he's crying, and that's a very sad moment. I feel for Dustin in that situation. We've all kind of been there, I like to think, at least once or twice in our lives. But Nancy comes and, basically extends her hand and says, "I'll dance with you." But she says something very important to him that I don't know if a lot of people caught. Maybe I'm just reading into this too much, but I don't feel like this is an accident whatsoever, the dialogue that she says. And she basically tells him that girls his age are dumb, but let them mature, and then once they do mature, once they wise up, he's going to drive them nuts. And so I think that she's kind of giving a little bit of commentary on herself, just because of the character that she's been, but also, I think it also is foreshadowing that future divide between Dustin and his friends, and that he might reach this certain level of popularity, and it might further separate him from his friends, and he might make new friends. And that line, again, I tell you, it does feel like it's foreshadowing that Dustin might become this popular kid, and he might, he might stray away from the group. I mean, next season's probably going to pick up in a year, maybe 2 years later, when they're like freshmen in high school or something. So that a year, 2 years, that's a lot of time for them to start dividing. So I hope that doesn't happen, because I love Dustin's character. I love seeing him with his friends, but I feel like that's certainly a strong possibility that they might be planting the seeds for him to spread out from the group. So we'll just have to wait and see, though. I want to talk about Jonathan Byers' character real quick, just because I relate so closely to him. I've never ever read or watched a character that I've related to more than Jonathan Byers. And I want to go back to a scene in season 2, episode 1. It's fairly early in the season, and Jonathan's walking out of class with Nancy, and this girl's like handing out invitations, flyers to her party. She hands one out to everybody but Jonathan, and then Nancy asks for another one, and then she gives it to Jonathan and invites him to this party. She takes it upon herself to invite him. Says she doesn't want him to be alone on Halloween. That's not acceptable. And he's saying, reading and listening to music alone at home, that's fine with him. That's fine. He's okay with that. but she doesn't want him to be alone. She wants him to go to the party. And then out of nowhere, the popular boyfriend, Steve Harrington, comes in, makes out with her. Then she totally forgets about Jonathan for a brief moment. And then when she looks back to see where he's gone, he's already walked off. I can't tell you how many times that scene has played out for me in real life. Stuff like that. I really relate to the character of Jonathan Byers. I know you probably get that message by now, but it's just, seeing that and the Duffer Brothers being able to write this character and write scenes like that are just so relatable, and it's so easy to put yourself in his shoes, because I've gone through that. I'm still fresh out of high school. I'm still in college. I'm barely my second year, and I go through scenes like that are actually playing out in real life for me on a weekly basis. I mean, it's kind of scary, really, how good writing can relate to so many people and reach out to them in many different forms, whether it's Jonathan or whether it's your Steve or whether it's your Nancy or your Dustins, whoever. There's a character for everyone in this show. So I really enjoy Jonathan's character. But he does get the girl this time in season 2. He does finally hook up with Nancy, and I like that. I like that pairing. That feels more organic than her and Steve, and I like that. And anyway, Steve deserves better than Nancy, so it's okay. Jonathan gets her, she gets him. It's perfect. It's match made in heaven. Everything. I'm curious to see how their chemistry is going to evolve. If it's going to change going into season 3, now that they are finally together, how their dynamic changes a little bit. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but. So I really enjoy the character of Jonathan. Getting to Will the Wise, he went through so much this season, it's not even funny. I mean, please, can we just let Will be happy? I mean, come on, Duffer Brothers, let him be happy. He went through so much. He had the shadow creature man, whatever, the flame, I forgot what the character's name is, but the big bad, the squid monster in the sky. He had him basically kind of like possessing him or something. I mean, he even betrayed his own family, his own friends. He gave them up in season 2, episode 8. So, I mean, he's gone through so much, and his acting was amazing. He had to portray so many different emotions, especially that scene where he's tied up in like his little shed at his house, and Mike and Jonathan and Joyce are basically giving out all these memories, these fond memories that they have with Will, and his reactions to all of them, and looking at all of them, and just trying to take that in, but while at the same time this shadow monster is still inside him controlling him, he has to use Morse code, so to try and speak to them. So I really enjoyed Will's character. He had a lot more to do. I hope that he's finally free of everything from the Upside Down, but most likely he's going to be thrown right back into the middle of things next season. So we'll have to see how that turns out. I almost kind of get the feeling that Mike's been dead from the start. The second the Demogorgon got him back in season 1, there was just his character's dead at that moment. His character, it's almost like he's meant to die. Like there's no way Will's getting out of this in the end. But I want to remain hopeful and hope that he does survive the entire series. But we'll have to see what happens there. I've seen some people complaining about the Morse code in episode 8, but it makes sense to me. It really does, because Hopper's the one who recognized that Will was using Morse code, and Hopper earlier in the season, when he's knocking on the door to get Eleven's attention, he's using Morse code between him and Eleven so that she can understand that it's him at the door and that it's okay for her to open it. So it makes sense that he would be the one to recognize Morse code, and then he would tell everybody else basically how it kind of works. So I don't have a problem with that. I think it made sense story-wise. Moving on from there. My final thoughts really. My only complaints would be episode 7 really doesn't fit with this series. It felt like a totally different show, and not even a good show at that. I appreciate what they're trying to do. They're trying to expand this story, but you don't have to do that. We want to stay in Hawkins. We want to stay with our central characters. We got like 11. I think we got like 11 main characters. Let's just stick with them in Hawkins, please. Let's not go to Chicago or anywhere else. We don't want that. We just want to stick to our central main characters and stick to our tiny little town of Hawkins. Billy, who was the new King Bully, the new human antagonist, I didn't understand what his character did. He didn't drive the story forward. He didn't add anything to the story. He's a very one-dimensional character. I don't care that his dad's like this very abusive man towards him. He doesn't have any redeeming qualities to him. So I didn't like Billy's inclusion in this season. But of course, I guess we'll have to wait and see if there's a payoff to him in later seasons. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But overall, my thoughts on Stranger Things season 2 is that phenomenal acting, phenomenal story structure, the directing, the writing, everything was just beautiful, top notch. I give it 2 strange thumbs up from this guy.